Speech off.
Hello there. This is your friend and host Prasanna Kumar Pincha, welcoming you to this show. So, how are you? How are you doing? I'm sure you are making the most of the lockdown period. Yes, you must. So, friends, the topic for our today's discussion and brief discussion, I would say, as promised, is inclusive education, rhetoric and reality. If you remember, in one of my earlier videos in Hindi, where I was in a conversation with Rhodes scholar Rahul Bajaj, I had promised to you that I would be coming up with a brief discussion on the same topic, maybe all by myself, and as a part of my effort to fulfill that promise, I'm here with you with this video. And you know, friends, when I refer to the promise I made, I'm actually reminded of something very funny. Many years back, when I used to be very young, I remember I heard a dialogue in a film, and that has stayed with me. And their two friends are in conversation. So the first friend says to the second friend, "Well, I wish to give you two pieces of advice." So the second friend says, "Go ahead." The first friend, advice number one: you must fulfill a promise that you have made to somebody. The second friend, done. And what is the second piece of advice? The first friend, the second piece of advice is that never ever promise anything to anyone. Now, friends, actually, I took the first piece of advice. I made a promise, and here I am trying to fulfill that promise. So, as I said, the topic is inclusive education, rhetoric, and reality. I would love to begin with some clarificatory statements. And the first of these clarificatory statements is that whatever I am going to discuss in this video is based purely on my personal understanding and personal experience of issues. Someone else's understanding and experience of issues may be altogether different, which is all right. There's nothing wrong in it. And I must also say that I have not undertaken any study or survey on this subject, and I'm really not aware of any credible agency which has ever undertaken a national level survey on inclusive/integrated education in the country. The second of these clarificatory statements that I would like to make is that when I refer to inclusive/integrated education or inclusive/integrated setup, I usually refer, unless of course I say this to the contrary, I usually refer to children who have studied in that setup right from the word go, right from the nursery class, because at a certain stage, all of us study in an inclusive/integrated setup. For example, particularly many of us who happen to be blind or who have maybe other sensory disabilities, study in an inclusive setup from the college and the university level, and many of us also, of course, from the high school level. And the third of these clarificatory statements, which I would like to make, and that's very important, is that this discussion is actually intended to see how best our professionals and other stakeholders can improve each setup, be it inclusive or integrated setup, be it special school setup, be it home-based education setup, whatever is the setup. It is actually not intended to unsettle any professional. And let me tell you, friends, that after I had uploaded the last video on this topic, where I was in Hindi, where I was in conversation with Rhodes Scholar Rahul Bajaj, I received a lot of positive feedback, except perhaps one, and that gentleman probably didn't listen or selectively listen to the video, which is why he said what he said, and something that he said was not in very good taste, but I have chosen to overlook and ignore it because it's not worth paying much attention to. And interestingly, the feedback which came to me was a large number of people were themselves persons with disabilities, who have lived experience of persons with disabilities, and working in the inclusive setup, or for that matter in the integrated setup, is not a source of their livelihood. Because if you have lived experience of disability, I think your experience is more authentic. And if it's a part of your profession, then your anxieties are different, because the stakes are very high for you, and you may interpret it differently. Not all professionals do that, but some of them do it, as one of our friends has been doing it for recondite reasons. Now, here I would like to make a few more observations. Firstly, I wish to state with all the emphasis in the world, with all the emphasis at my command, that those of you who have been following my discourses for the last maybe 10, 12, 15 years must be very well aware that I have consistently been maintaining that our obsession should be more with the quality of education rather than with the setup from where that education happens. And I am not aware of anyone else talking so vociferously about quality education. Maybe somebody has, but I'm not aware of that. Now, the fact of the matter is that that many years back, maybe in the year 2005 or 2006, I had coined a slogan which goes like this: give me quality education and I will ensure my inclusion. The next observation, the second of these, which I would like to make, is that here the words inclusive, the expressions or the terms inclusive education and integrated education are actually used interchangeably. Although the conceptual framework of both these systems of education are different according to the academic professionals who are working in the field of special education. And even in India, what we are actually getting implemented is closer to the framework of integrated education, and that is more practical also. That's how I feel, because the conceptual framework of inclusive education, we'll discuss about it a little later. But what I'm saying is that these two terms are used interchangeably, and maybe in this discussion I might also end up doing the same thing for easy comprehension by viewers and listeners, because sometimes you tend to combine them, both of them, and therefore, and that's why, if you have noticed, I have been saying inclusive education / integrated education. The third observation that I would like to make is that my own sense is that here in India, inclusive education or integrated education, when you refer to children who have studied in that setup right from nursery class, has failed to deliver quality education, particularly to students with blindness and to students with other sensory disabilities and to students with intellectual disabilities and also perhaps to students with learning disabilities compared to the special school setup. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that all is well with the special school setup. No, not at all. I mean, a large number of special schools are in dire straits and a lot needs to be done there too. But compared to that this setup has actually not been able to deliver quality education to students belonging to these categories of disabilities. The fourth observation that I would like to make is that a sizable chunk of our brothers and sisters with locomotor disabilities are studying in mainstream schools right from the word go because they don't have exclusive schools for them. Of course, I'm not talking about our brothers and sisters with cerebral palsy. I'm talking about our brothers and sisters with locomotor disabilities, and therefore obviously they and many of them have been doing very well because for them they have other issues, but the basic issues such as accessibility of books, they don't have that issue because they can see what is being taught on with the help of the blackboard. What is written on the blackboard they can see, so that's not a very big issue for them. The pictorial descriptions they can understand, that's not a very big issue for them. Their issues are, they have real-time issues, very big issues, but those issues are very different in nature and they relate to the accessibility of the physical environment, etc. So that's something that we need to understand. The next observation that I would like to make is that if somebody undertakes a survey, I believe that it will come out that amongst the employees, government employees with disabilities, those who have studied in the inclusive / integrated setup right from the nursery class are the employees who happen to have locomotor disabilities. I don't think that the totally blind person, for example, if you undertake a survey amongst the totally blind person who are in government service, most of them, if not all of them, have studied in the special school setup. Now, I am not talking about those exceptions amongst the totally blind who have studied in the inclusive / integrated setup right from the nursery class, and those who have grown up in privileged conditions. I know a few of them, but they are, of course, I don't think any of them is in government service right now. So these are some of the important observations that I thought I should be making. And one more observation, of course, is that as I said, why this disproportionate obsession with inclusive / integrated education and not actually so much on quality education. Here I will give you one example. Now leave aside disability for a moment. Here in India you have schools which are exclusively meant for boys, from where girls are excluded. Likewise, you have schools which are exclusively meant for girls, from where boys are excluded, right? And perhaps you also have schools uh, from where, for minority communities, from where probably uh, students belonging to the so-called majority community are excluded. So, what does this imply? Now, the students have a choice. And what is the choice? The choice is that you can opt for a co-ed school, you can go to a school for boys if you like, and if it is a girl, if she decides she can, or her parents decides if she is a child, she can go to a student which is meant exclusively for girls. So it's a matter of choice. And so this implies that inclusive setup does not exclude exclusivity. It is so all-encompassingly inclusive that it also does not rule out exclusive institutions. Another observation which comes to mind is that, and that is also something which I have been maintaining throughout all these years, is that all kinds of setup should continue, so that a student with disability has the freedom to make his or her own choice depending on her situation, her circumstances, her preference, her choice, etc. Right? So, excuse me. So, a range of alternatives or a range of options should be there, and this is very much in keeping not only with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which India has ratified, and which actually one of its very important principles is the freedom to make one's own choice. And this principle has also been reflected in the preamble of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. Now, friends, let me talk to you a little bit about categorization of, or categories of expertise. Now, you may ask, what has this got to do with the topic at hand? You will understand it, I will tell you. Now, there are, according to me, three categories of expertise. One is subject expertise, which means that you have learnt it, you have undergone training in a certain area. It could be inclusive education, it could be, you can call it special education within that. Maybe your area of work and study and work could be inclusive/integrated education or special education, whatever. So you have that bookish knowledge as well as the practical experience of working in the field. So that is subject expertise. Then there is a second category, which is experiential expertise, and that is very, 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 very important. Experiential expertise means that I, for example, or many of you have the lived experience of disabilities. Many of us have lived with blindness. Some of our other brothers and sisters have lived or are living with other categories of disabilities. So we have lived experience of disabilities, and in that sense our experience to that extent has greater authenticity, what we feel, because we have hands-on experience, right? And there is another third category, according to me, and that third category is a mix of subject expertise and experiential expertise. That somebody may have lived experience of disabilities or maybe living with a disabilities and also have subject expertise, and that's also great. Now you will understand that the UN Convention, as also the RPD Act, places paramount importance on experiential expertise, which is very, very important and which is very authentic. And that is why I always stress the importance of listening to people who have lived in that condition, what they feel about matters. So this is how it is. Now let me come to the basic issue. What is inclusive education, and what is the difference between inclusive education and integrated education conceptually? Very briefly and very simply speaking, integrated education says, yes, you can put a student with disability in a so-called mainstream school, but you have to give him additional extra support, maybe a special educator, itinerant teacher, etc., etc., special additional tutorial classes outside regular school hours, etc. And that's how you can integrate students with disabilities. Inclusive the education framework says the same teacher, all the students, whether they are students with disabilities or students without disabilities, would study not just under the same roof, not just from the same set of teachers, but also in the same, they will have a common resource room. There will be no separate or exclusive resource room for students with disabilities. Now that's the conceptual framework. How does our law define inclusive education? Right now I have not pulled out the RPD Act 2016, but I essentially remember, and it's probably Section 2M if I remember correctly. And what the essence of what it says is that it's a system where students with disabilities and students without disabilities study together, and where the academic process is adapted to suit the academic needs of all categories of students. Now they stress upon adaptability. They do not rule out special educators. They do not rule out exclusive resource room as the exponent of the inclusive education conceptual framework would do. So this is more pragmatic, more practical, and actually this is more closer to the integrated setup. Another thing I would like to clarify here, that one friend who I was referring to earlier in this discussion said that yes, I agree with Mr. Pincha when he asserts that yes, actually in the government circles this is not getting implemented properly. Now he's probably working with some NGO. Now my point is, actually it is the primary duty and obligation of the government. What is the outreach of these NGOs? It's very minimal. So anyway, so that's the difference between inclusive education and integrated education. And in law, I have told you what is there and how it has been defined. So the law doesn't exclude, and the law takes a more practical approach, more pragmatic approach. It says yes, it would allow for because you see, understand one thing. If you go by the conceptual framework of the inclusive education strictly, now suppose a period comprises 40 minutes or 45 minutes, and suppose there are 40 students, out of which 10 are students with disabilities belonging to different categories of disabilities. Some are blind, some are maybe speech and hearing impaired, some are students with intellectual disabilities, etc. And 30, the rest are students without disabilities. Now, how on earth do you expect a poor primary school teacher to know at one and the same time Braille, sign language, also to have the ability to handle children with intellectual disabilities, etc., and also to take care of the 30 children without disabilities, and all of that too within a matter of 40 or 45 minutes. So this is very lofty ideal, but this is not achievable, honestly speaking. Although those who are very, and I am opposed to all kinds of fanaticism, but those who are bigots or those who are fanatics with regard to any system, whether it is inclusive setup or special setup or whatever. So here in this case, probably those who are fanatically attached to the inclusive setup will say all kinds of things to me, but so be it. It doesn't matter. This is not at all practical. Yes, and that is why in one of my earlier videos I said, considering the present prevailing condition in India, that if I am a father of moderate means, and if I have a child who is blind, I would first try to see if he can be put up in a special school, a school meant for the blind. If I get a better blind school, I will definitely put him up in that school. And in case I fail to get admission, then rather than making him sit at home, maybe I will consider sending him to a neighborhood school. Because as I said, my emphasis has always been quality education rather than the setup. I'm not so much bothered about the setup from where that education actually happens to me. So this is a very important point that we need to keep in mind. Now, let's understand how this inclusion or integration can be made a little meaningful. Inclusion has to happen at all levels. It's not just that you put a child in a so-called mainstream school, get his name get his name written in the admission register, and then show that you have included this many children with disabilities. That's no inclusion. Inclusion, in order to be real, has to happen at various levels: at the infrastructure level, at the school management level, at the teaching learning level, at the examination and evaluation level, at the curriculum development level. Now, for example, when whether the infrastructure of the school is accessible to persons belonging to all categories of disabilities, whether the school management has representatives of students with disabilities, or for that matter, if they are very young, of parents of students with disabilities, whether the teaching learning process is accessible to students belonging to all categories of disabilities, whether the teaching learning material is available in different formats to students belonging to different categories of disabilities, whether the examination and evaluation system has been geared up to meet the need. For example, you cannot use the same yardstick when you examine and evaluate the performance of a student with intellectual disability with the rest of the students. Whether you have in the curriculum, whether you have because you have to develop separate you have to make certain changes in the curriculum. Now, how for example, do you ensure that a student with intellectual disability studies in an inclusive setup? Because the students with intellectual, and I think it would be criminal in a way to only put them in the inclusive setup, because you see, children with intellectual disabilities have to be taught very basic things: self-grooming, toileting habits, etc. So for that, they have to have separate setups and so-called special, or I would call them specific setup, where they can undergo that kind of training. And I think that's very, very important. So this inclusive education would remain a rhetoric unless we actually modify certain things depending on the needs of the child, on the circumstances of the child, and we do not stick to the original conceptual framework fanatically. I think that is not going to help us out. We need to adopt the approach which works. This is actually very, very important. We must keep this in mind. And as I said, that inclusive education, inclusion has to happen at various levels. Now, the special schools, as I said, most of them are in very dire states, and the manner in which the students are kept in those residential schools is pathetic. And that also needs to be need to be radically improved. That has to be changed. It's not that all is well with the special setup, but at least they have they give a level playing field compared to the so-called inclusive slash integrated setup. Now, for example, if I am a blind child and I am studying in a so-called inclusive slash integrated setup right from the nursery class, maybe in the beginning I will learn a few things orally or verbally, and later as I grow and get promoted to class 1 or class 2, and gradually I will not be able to understand what is being written on the blackboard, what the teacher is explaining, what pictorial descriptions are there, I will not be able to appreciate, and therefore I will feel excluded in the crowd, not necessarily because I am necessarily less meritorious than the rest of my peers, but because I don't have a level playing field. So for want of a level playing field, I might feel excluded in this crowd, and that's a very dangerous thing to happen. Now, friends, why is it that we need inclusive slash integrated education? To my mind, two reasons, very important reasons. One is that when you make a child with disabilities study with children without disabilities, then the child with disabilities does not feel alienated from the rest of the society. He feels very much a part of the society. And the other children also, children without disabilities, they also tend to become more accepting if the child is studying there in that setup right from the beginning. So that's very important, in fact. And secondly, and that's why I tell you, when I was heading an institution of the blind years back in Upper Assam in Jorhat, what I used to do is that I used to organize events where children, where I would invite, say for example, debates or such other competitions where children with blindness and without blindness could participate together. Children from other schools, so-called mainstream schools, would come and compete with our children. Similarly, our children also used to get invited to that. So this is how we used to make an effort to see that they feel that they are very much a part of it. The second reason why we need inclusive slash integrated setup is that the cost of setting up special institutions is prohibitive, and you can't set up special institutions in too many places because of the cost implications, because of the cost involved. So that's also very, very important. I think this is something which cannot be overlooked. Now, one may ask, so what do we do? Now, we need to do some out of the box thinking. We need to get out of fanaticism or bigotry, if at all we have that, and we need to see what approach would work the most, would actually deliver, and that which delivers quality education, that approach may be adopted. For example, maybe there could be some mainstream school where children with because you see what is actually happening here in government is that one special educator is assigned so many schools, and his training is in a particular stream of disability. Somebody is trained in teaching the speech and hearing impaired, but if in the school where he goes there are blind students, he will be clueless. He will not be able to help you out, right? So one has to figure out ways to see what best can be done. And I think all these systems, whether they are inclusive and integrated setup or home-based setup or special school setup, all of them can be improved All we need is to put our heads together and to do some innovative, imaginative, out of the box thinking. Before I conclude, friends, I would certainly like to make one point, and the point that's also one point which I have been making for years together, is that actually I do not quite endorse the expression or the popularly used term spatial education, and I'll give you the reason for it. Now, firstly, education is education. What is so special about my education? And why do you describe education of students with disabilities as special education when UN Convention recognizes disability as a part of humanity and human diversity, and when even the RPD Act 2016 also reflects the same principle and recognizes disability as a part of humanity and human diversity? This is very, very important. Now, I also use the expression special education or special school because people don't understand. Otherwise, I would say that Braille, for example, Braille is not my special need as a blind person. Braille is my specific need as a blind person. JAWS software is my specific need as a person with visual disability or as a person with blindness. Likewise, given the freedom and given the acceptance, I would rather prefer using the word disability specific institution rather than saying special school. A school is a school. What is so special about a school? This is for you to pause and ponder, to reflect. So, friends, I think I'm sure I must have left out lot many more things, and I know that after I conclude this discussion, as it always happens with me, I feel that, oh my God, this was an important point and that got left out. But that's okay, because I usually record my videos offhand without actually organizing my thoughts. I speak extempore, whatever comes to my mind at the time of recording, I just speak. So there you are. Do take care of yourself. Keep smiling. Cheers.
Speech on. Stop.